Alright, so here's a situation that shows where Jamaica really is. The situation at BB Coke, where a young man stepped on another young man's shoes and was beaten senseless. Black and blue was the color of choice, like a slave who did something wrong. And then you have a group of boys who took him up, left out of got out of the school, left off the school compound, and took them to the doctor in the town. If you know anything about Junction, there is a serious distance between the school and the town. And so we're going to break it down on how this reflects Jamaican society. First, you go into the history of it. Long from time, I would say time immemorial, from since a couple decades now, there has been going through the music, which is the way of supposedly reaching the masses and acting as the voice of the masses. And when you have the music saying these things, if a man bunk me, if a man brush me, if a man step on me toe, if a man spill drinks on my shirt, if a man do anything to me, slight or something, I would just simply say, sorry, Bridget, and then go on by your day. That person fi dead. That person fi get choked box with the buckle, buckle broke on him head. It was happening a couple years ago that in Santa Cruz, somebody stepped out of a taxi in the middle of the Christmas celebrations and unfortunately stepped on somebody's shoe, or I don't remember, or bone dirty up somebody's shirt, and he was stabbed. He was stabbed and killed. And unfortunately, it was the wrong person. It wasn't even that person that did it. He was stabbed as being the person closest in proximity to him, because the person who did the action was moving through the crowd. So the victim turned around and just used him knife on the nearest person that him suspect to have committed the atrocity, the Holocaustian crime against him. And now it goes to show, and you have now seen that to have now become the prevalent mindset where ignorance reigns supreme, to the point now that as school reflects society, so too does the actions. And you see it there now where that young man beat the young man senseless, and while he was on the ground continued to step in his head with the same shoes that was barely scuffed. So let's move on. Then you have the hope of Jamaica. Those four youths that got up and took up the young man and brought him to the doctor. This is typical of the typical and an example of the good Samaritan in the Bible. And I'm going to go deeper into that further on. Took up those youth, walked all that way. And while they were walking, they passed how many cars passed them along the way. And the journey was long and the body was heavy. But they didn't stop because many hands make work light. If it was one youth there carrying the friend, it would have been maybe too much of a task, even for two, but it was four. So that helped to make the journey a bit more bearable. And it then goes to show that there are a few in Bethlehem, there's a few in Judea, there's a few in Jamaica who still stand up for morals and values. And then we move on and come to the majority, who are like the people who pass on the side of the road, who see the young men carrying the youth to the doctor and not asking what happened, not stopping to help, not questioning any sort of thing at all. They just drove along their way. And that represents the majority of Jamaica because when the wrongs are happening, unless it's happening to you or to them, they're not going to do anything, they're not going to say anything. If it is when the neighbor is getting robbed, killed, house burned down, and they say, please come forward, tell what you know. And everybody who have seen whistle turn them head and walk go on, or turn them head and hide until their house is the next burning down, and they then come out and say the same message, please tell what you know. So that is the case. The silent majority becomes the next set of victims, one by one, because the perpetrator, the person whose Clarks or shoes were stepped on, we're not even sure it was Clarks, if it's Clarks anymore. The person whose shoes were stepped on are all loud and vocal and violent minorities. As are the people who step up to defend and help the victims, the real victims. But the majority are the silent ones, the ones who are quote unquote tolerant. Evil should not be tolerated. It should never be tolerated. Because first it is tolerated, then it is accepted, and then it becomes wrong to do the right thing. And Jamaica has long since passed the situation of where the right thing has now become the wrong thing. Case in point again, the crab situation going on in the country. So many things wrong going on in that situation. But we're not going to be talking about that one this time. Tune in next week on Dragon Ball Z. So, you now have the same groups of people. You have the perpetrators, you have the few good Samaritans, and you have the silent majority. Because, and the reason why the majority is silent, because they don't want to be inconvenienced in any way, shape, or form. Because an avoidance of pain is the biggest source of or cause of action among humans, trying to avoid pain and, in other words, inconvenience. They don't want to be affected, and worse when it does not directly affect them. And so you see why those boys had to be walking all the way from the school BB Coke to the doctor. And then going further on, this perpetrator had a history of troublemaking and violent crimes, with the ministry and the school knowing, because the reports are in the book at school. And obviously, over time, examinations, visitations from the ministry were done. And with those being done, they would know the problem children, not only through the records, but through the letters being sent to the ministry. The mother also knows, and in the beginning, she came out and said that he was a problem child and have been a problem child for years. But then she finally turned him in after public outrage. So it's not because of the conscience that bother her. It is because of the outrage, and if them find the kid one away, they might do something to her, to him. That is the reason why she brought him in my opinion. So, on top of that, then staying at the hospital, Manville Hospital, and Manville Hospital, a major regional hospital, did not have the facilities to take care of this boy. One of the biggest hospitals in the region, ones that support the Cornwall region and Middlesex region, and it did not have the facilities to take care of this child. And even it took days of public uproar and outrage to have the government do something and move the child to a facility that could help the child. Then it took another set of outrage for the Prime Minister to laud the boys. And the reason why they had to be lauded was because of the culture and mindset that is pervaded in Jamaica. That doing good is now seen as evil. It is seen as inconvenient, as bothersome, as something painful. Because when you do good, the perpetrators not only have the means, the leeway, but they have no barrier to commit acts of evil against the Samaritans who stand up to help, who stand up to report. Because not only are the hands of the police tied, the hands in this case of the school tied, but the government sits down and does not, and with archaic laws that cannot bring justice to these situations in no way, shape, or form. In no way, shape, or form. And it is sad, it is very sad. And then on top of it, the mother has now gotten legal counsel for the boy. Some may say that this is his right, as it is for legal representation, but in my opinion, this would have much better, that money would have much better been used to help to pay for the victim in the hospital in critical condition. That young man needs to spend some time in jail. Not life, but he needs to face a serious consequence for his actions. Only then will he learn. Actions have consequences, good or bad. And with this very bad action should come heavy consequences. And with us trying to save the youth from becoming fully dunce, with even dunce on the backpack, and completely materialistic with Clark's expensive British brand shoes, walking around, the shoes stylish, the hair stylish, the pants tight, but the bag and the brain empty. That is the sad case for the boys. The girls, makeup, hair done, nails done, everything did. Oh, you fancy, huh? Bag and brain empty. And if we are trying to save these youths and turn around the culture, this boy needs to be made an example of. He needs to be used as a reference for what would happen in these cases. But as you know, Jamaica has not a very good track record of upholding these justice in majority of the cases. And when it does uphold justice, it is woefully inadequate. Woefully inadequate. So therein lies the issue. We need to make an example of the perpetrators. We need to make Samaritans the norm, and we need to make the good actions the norm, so that it doesn't have to be lauded with visits to King House and award ceremonies and pictures with the Prime Minister. It is supposed to become as commonplace as breathing. Doing good should never be something that has become so rare that it requires national attention and accolades. That is how you know that the country is in dire straits. Dire straits. Flushing down the toilet and going under the drain. And then the silent majority needs to become vocal. It needs to stop being passive and tolerant. It needs to take a stand, and even to the point of sacrifice, that stand needs to be taken. So it should follow the situation of C4 and the banker in the Black Man Klansman trial. That amount of sacrifice is necessary throughout the country to spark the level of change that we desire within the country. People who are looking forward to the future, knowing that it doesn't only end with their lives, that the country is not only tied with their lives, but with the lives of the future generation as well. So you're supposed to make the country better for the future. And too long has Jamaica been mired in stagnant water, stagnant to the point of causing gangrene of delirious levels. And so we have to be cutting and sacrificing on a high level to stem the scourge. Mm, it's sad, real sad.